want to demonstrate the proportions here because it's seeing is believing, is what it comes down to. And what we're talking about here is now, if I take and look at the skeleton here, I say, well, okay, the top of the head, the width of the top of the head here, the back of the head, remember, is wider than the front. That distance there is equal to the top of the head to the bottom of the nose coming through. Well, that distance there is equal to the pit of the neck. You can see how that works out. So if I take, and let's look at clay here. That's the width of the head. Now we take from the top of the head, not the forehead, but the top of the head, we get the same proportion, and we come from here down to here, we're talking there. That's going to take and come down to the bottom of the sternum. That'll take us to the bottom of the 10th rib. Now, you look at Tiffany, you see the same thing. We're all very much the same. The width of the head, from the top of the head to the bottom of the nose, from the bottom of the nose to, let me see if I can do this. Now, keep your head flat. Okay, you can see now that basically we're talking about the same proportions. This is also the same proportion as the clavicle. So, and where the sternum would come through. So we're talking basic one simple measurement. Now let's turn around here for a second, Clay. You see it's the same basic proportion now. It corresponds to the length of the scapula and the scapula coming down. Same thing. So it's not a complicated thing. It's really just one measurement.
Welcome to New Masters Academy, the best place to get art education online. Master the skills of figure drawing, painting, sculpting, and much more with the guidance of world-renowned artists. Embark on your creative journey today at anime.art.
We're talking about the distance from the top of the head to the bottom of the nose and to the pit of the neck, but that then equals from there to the bottom of the rib cage. We're talking about the same proportion coming down here, half of that to the pubic arch. So at this point, we've really gone through the whole point. Now, let's take and demonstrate my points here in doing a drawings. Okay, now let's take and go through the proportions. First of all, I'm going to give you two basic approaches. Generally speaking, in almost all your anatomy books that you see, people use 8 heads high figures. Okay. In other words, where you have basic proportions, breaking it down. So, and here I break this. So the head size then corresponding to this. Now I use a little different system. Okay, that proportion right there, 8 heads high, is actually not really normal. Standard human proportions are more closer to 7.5 to 7 3/4. So I just break this off. But this becomes a convenient means of taking and starting out. So if I take and put a mark at the top, a mark at the bottom, and then take and break that in half, and break that in half again, and break that in half. This gives me a rough head size. This point here, this halfway point being the pubic arch. And then, of course, here I would break this in half. The halfway part here then becomes the knees. Okay. Now, if we're taking this proportion here to start with, okay, let me take and break the head down here. We're starting out with the head here. Okay, the general proportions now. And everybody is pretty much the same. Eyes are in the center. Brow line is a little bit above that. So this is halfway. Brow, you just have to learn to see that. The distance between the chin and the brow, halfway, is the bottom of the nose. So that's another halfway proportion. Then we have the bottom of the lower lip, not the opening of the mouth. The opening of the mouth is above that. Now, the opening of the mouth corresponds to the corner of the jaw coming down. The ear corresponds to the line of the brow to the bottom of the nose. Now, the front of the head, and if you take and look at our lessons dealing with the head, you will see that the back of the head is wider than the front. And the width of the head now corresponds to the distance from the top of the head to the bottom of the nose. So in other words, what we have here then is roughly a square. Okay, that proportion, the width of the head, or the distance from the top of the head to the bottom of the nose, becomes our sort of standard measurement that we work with. This same proportion now will correspond to the distance to the pit of the neck. So at this point now we have the points set up. So if I start out with what I have here, I go through eyes, brow, halfway, bottom of the nose, this proportion then taking and fitting to the pit of the neck. Okay, now as we were talking about the anatomy or the rib cage, we saw that the rib cage is high and back. Also, I mentioned the proportions from the pit of the neck to the top of the head is equal. This distance here is equal to the bottom of the 10th rib. So we're talking about the rib cage. Half of that distance, in other words, the same proportion that we're talking about from the bottom of the nose to the pit of the neck coming down, is where the cartilage attaches and the thoracic arch. And then these become the bottom of the rib cage, 10th rib, not the actual bottom. The rib cage is high and back, so we're coming down and we're digging and working through the proportions here. Now, I mentioned the difference between male and female is that the male thoracic arch is more of a triangle. Female is slightly narrower, more like 60 degrees. One is 90 to 60. Okay, the distance from here to the end of the iliac crest is the end of the pubic arch. In other words, the corners of the pelvis. Half of that distance takes us to the pubic arch. In other words, you can see this distance here, half of our standard measurement is taking us to the pubic arch. Okay, this is equivalent, this point here now is equivalent to 4 heads. Okay? Now, the same measurement that we've been talking about, this measurement top of the head to the bottom of the nose corresponds to the end of the clavicle. In other words, remembering the clavicle is an S curve coming through. Okay? The scapula comes out beyond that. And as we take down to the knees here, the trochanter, your hip bone, now is going to take and correspond roughly with your pubic arch, and the leg is now going at a diagonal. Remember that this joint is not at right angles. This is squared so that the leg, the knees come forward at an angle, and then we come down to the wrist. Now your elbow will take and correspond to your waist. So as we're coming out of the glenoid cavity of the scapula, coming down here. Now, the wrist corresponds to the pubic arch. Now, if you notice as you bend your arm that the wrist, this distance here to here, is quite short. It doesn't come up to where your shoulder joint is here, the glenoid cavity, the end of the humerus. Okay, so then the hand itself is equal to what we refer to as the face, which we take and break the head down into roughly quarters. You would find that where you have the theoretical hairline. So the hand is the face. Now, the foot, the size of the foot is, now of course it varies with one person to another, but the foot is basically the same size as the head. And the hand, if we take the foot, the shape of the foot, coming out this way, you'll find that your hand will fit into, from the arch to the end of the big toe. So these are all very, very, very common proportions. Now, the back is taking and is actually the same thing now. If we take and look at the rib cage, say from the top, we see that the rib cage is shaped, it's quite horizontal, this way. Now the scapulas, let's just take and create a line here where the pit of the neck would be. Notice I'm drawing this considerably smaller. The rib cage is tiny at the top. Okay, now clavicle is this S curve that goes around. The scapula now is coming across the back, and it's on this curved surface and coming off out here. And I've mentioned about the fact that we have, this is a squared off corner coming back into that. Okay, the scapula from the back, and I'm just going to superimpose this over the front here, is that the scapula is going off, and is the length of the scapula is equal to the clavicle, but since it's going around a curved surface, we're going to find a gap from the center of the spine to where the scapula begins. So this is a change in here. The bottom, and it lines up pretty much with the pit of the neck. The base of the scapula is coming to where the sternum, not the end of the xeocoid process, but where the cartilage actually attaches. So this line here, and it's not a perfect straight right angle, it's slightly moved out. So these points here, but these are the same measurement essentially as the distance from the top of the head to the bottom of the nose. So the clavicle, scapula, in both ways come through, and we come down to the end, the iliac crest. Now, what happens? Let's look at the proportion. Let's look at this in profile, because this is not actually what we see. What we see is something quite different. In other words, if I take and draw the pelvis in profile, here's the end of the iliac crest, the points, the dimples on the back, pubic arch coming down here, and the choroid process, the remembering all these names, never do. Okay, ischiotuberosity in the back here. Okay, this point here, okay, these tend to line up and through here. You have the spine coming across at an angle here. Okay, the muscles of the stomach are taking and coming down and attaching to the pubic arch. But that actually is not what we see. In other words, the muscles are coming down and attaching at this point right here. Okay, what happens is that we have fat pads, and the body has many fat pads all over it. But right at this point, both male and female, you have a fat pad that goes down through here. In other words, the fat pad is filling up the space right here. Both male and female genitals are coming from the underside. They're down here. Okay, this is where things. So what we see is a distance like this. We see this triangular shape, generally, both male and female coming down this way. So this is a misleading proportion. The pubic arch is in here, not down here. And so you're looking at that point. And in talking about the anatomy and talking about where you take and bend your leg, that here's your end of your pelvis. The leg, when you bend it, I was just going to take and add a bending leg, say coming out and drawing this as a cylinder. The bend takes place where the bone here is. That's where the change is. This is now taking that leg if it was going out, would be bending at this point. So from here to there, you have a basic 3-finger gap. So this is a point that is often a mistake that many beginning students, most beginning students, they think of the leg as being attached to the end of the pelvis up here. It's not. The leg, if we bend the leg coming across here, we would find that all of the muscles that are on here are taking and attaching to the bone itself or going inside here. What we have happening coming from up here are 2 primary muscles, a tensor and a sartorius muscle, that are taking, but those are the straight line that we see on the model in the profile. So that gives us the essence now of our basic proportions that we're looking at.